Today, Carol Ann and I are stepping in for Annette while she's globetrotting. And we have the wonderful pleasure of being with Marnie Perner from Kinesiology. That's KINIQUE.com. And I'm sure you're going to want to visit Marnie there. Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hi, Anaya and Carol Ann.
Good morning, Anaya. Good morning, Marnie. I'm delighted to be here with you. And I'm happy to be with Marnie because it's usually Annette who gets that pleasure. And today it's Anaya and I. So I'm really happy about that, Marnie.
That's lovely. And Annette's swanning it over in London, swanning it up in London.
She is. So today we're going to be speaking about how old childhood trauma can limit one's life. Marnie, when we're talking about limiting one's life, what do you mean by that?
What I mean was the trauma trigger stays with you. So when the same situation comes up again, you respond as if you're a child. So you don't respond as someone who's lived some life and got some life skills. And that can affect your health and wellness. It can affect your state of mind. It can affect your confidence. It can affect many aspects of your life. And you wonder why, why didn't I cope better? And you haven't realised you haven't addressed one of those trauma triggers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can personally attest to that. The last 5 or 6 years have been really challenging in so many ways. And there have been times where it's taken me a while to realise that I'm actually responding as a 5-year-old. And it wasn't until I got there, Marnie, and I figured that out, that the panic and the absolute sheer fear that I was in after my parents died, I realised I was responding as a 5-year-old without any parents, and so I didn't feel safe in the world.
Mm.
Yeah.
And also, something that triggers you to feel like you're an orphan is very strong.
Yeah. So
it doesn't matter what age you are. Sorry, Carol.
No, you're right. I'm just not used to having a sort of a three-way. I'm just used to being with Anaya and I. But yes, I think that it's really interesting how we can just, without unconsciously, slip back into that childlike, loneliness, and not knowing how to act, when in reality we've done a lot of living in our lives, and so we don't need to step back into that, but it's an unconscious thing that happens to us, and it's really interesting knowing how to deal with that.
One of the biggest triggers that takes you back to childhood is the trigger of smell. A smell will take you instantly back to an event, whether that be happy event or a not so happy event.
Yeah, that's so true. How many times have you heard someone talking about smelling grandma's cookies, or their talcum powder, perfume, or a cigar, cigarette smoke, whatever, in the days when people smoked. It's so powerful and so immediate, isn't it?
Instant.
Yeah,
it's instant. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it's been a severe trauma as opposed to a nice memory, it takes you into that flight fight mode. So you're instantly in danger alert. And when you're in that state of danger, you can't respond differently to an existing response. So you haven't got the capacity. You go into it's called a primitive reflex, and that primitive reflex is set back in the days of the dinosaurs. So you were either the eater, so you were getting ready to eat someone, or you were the eaten, getting ready to fight. So you're either fighting or flying. And in that space, you do not have creative thought. You just go for gold. You're running like mad. And you also don't have capacity for longevity in that response as well, because your breathing changes. It gets more shallow and quicker, so it doesn't last as long. So if you're in that state, you're in that state of fright. That state that people say, I froze on the spot.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't move, even though I knew I should have. And that's that adrenal, oh my God, state. You don't want to be living in that state all the time.
No, so that adrenal reflex, sorry, Anaya, that adrenal reflex is extremely strong, and it's extremely debilitating as well. And that's what stops us in our tracks, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm. Absolutely. So, Marnie, and welcome everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Just before we go any further, I'd like to remind you all that Angel Heart Radio, all of us here, we don't dispense any legal, medical advice of any kind. And we don't want to replace your own sound judgment, because you have a good judgment within yourself, even though you may not know that. So we're here to support you so you can connect with that more fully and really feel comfortable about the choices that you're making. So, Marnie, when we're talking about this old childhood trauma, what are some of the signs or signals that someone may not be already recognizing that is in fact what's happening with them?
It's when they can't understand why they're not coping as an adult is the big one. Or I've done so much work on myself, and yet straight away I'm taken back to childhood, you know, because a lot of us spend our life learning and discovering and gaining knowledge and life experiences. And then this thing can come along, and it can be the tiniest little spot, and it's traumatic enough that it takes you back. And afterwards you go, I knew not to do that. so you're consciously aware that you should have coped better, but at the time you haven't. Right?
Okay.
And sometimes your response is inappropriate to the event.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's just, you know, your stress bucket is so full, and that little trigger just flicks it over, and you have a totally inappropriate response. And you know afterwards, oh my God, why did I do that? You know? But the biggest thing for me as a kinesiologist is identifying the trigger. So if we work with goals, so if our goal is, I don't know, my emotions are well balanced, or I cope well under duress, or I cope, you know, I'm happy and calm. Happy and calm is a very easy goal, but it'll dig up a lot of emotions, because the body goes, okay, you want that, but I'm looking on the inside and you ain't happy and calm.
Yeah.
So where are you holding that? When did it start?
I can see your book behind you. Can you just reach over and grab a copy?
I can.
Somewhere. Show you. Let's have a look at the book, everyone. This is Marnie's book.
This is my book.
Amid Chaos.
Yep.
It's available on her website, KINIQUE.com. You can connect with Marnie on Facebook as well. What's popped up for us?
So what popped up for us is it's all about, the chapter is chapter 6, and it's your stress bucket deficit. So a stress bucket deficit is where stress bucket is so full that it says, right, for you to empty some of that, you need to pay some back of your health. So what in your health bucket can you repay to reduce some of that deficit?
Wow.
So your health, if you imagine your health has got the two scales. It's got your what I call the stress bucket on one side and your life energy on the other side. And they're purely a set of scales. So I call my stress bucket Henry. If you've got a Henry in your life, don't call it Henry. Call it something else. But Henry's my stress bucket, and Deliza's my life energy. So if Henry's too full, Deliza hasn't got capacity anymore. When she hasn't got capacity, it means your immune response is low. And if your immune response is low, your health and wellness is at risk as well. So something will happen. You will either revert back to what you're like. You know how your children, one of them gets a tummy ache, one gets a headache, and the other one gets asthma. All of those become the weakest link when it's triggered without your choice. So when your immune system is really low, you'll often revert back to what is a generalized illness or ill health.
Okay. Yeah, this is making so much sense. So much of what you've said today is already making a lot of sense for me. Yeah, now, I want to share with everyone that I'm actually visiting Marnie as a client. I've only had one session with Marnie. So Marnie can do this in person, or she can do it online. And I have to say, Marnie, I got so much out of that session with you, and I've been facing what could be a life-limiting situation. And in that one session, oh my God, that one session, the improvement has been beyond anything I could have hoped for. You gave me a technique. Yeah, it's amazing. And you gave me a technique to reset, you gave me other techniques as well, but that one in particular has been amazing for me. You worked out with my body what oil I needed. I've been using that. That's been amazing. But the thing that really struck me the most about that session with you was how frightened I really have been, but have learned to get on with it.
Yeah, so you've hidden it, but it hides behind the surface.
Yeah.
So it's lurking. It's like a lurker, because you're not, if you haven't dealt with it yet, it can pop up at any time and say boo.
That's it. And say boo, a big boo, and that big boo can be very frightening. So you're right about that. It is a lurker, and it just can take one little thing. And I know this is all connected to my childhood trauma as well. Over responsibility has been a major thing, because I felt I had to take on the responsibility of my parents' marriage and the family structure as a whole. And I've known that for years, and I've done so much personal work, and yet, right? When you said, how do you know? And you say, I'm not coping. Why am I not coping? I should know better. That has been a major thing for me. So I'm sure there'll be lots of people watching as well who will also have these types of responses. And I'm sorry we can't see your comments today. For some reason, I can't get into the app. But really think about it.
Have a look afterwards.
Pay attention to that. So, Marnie.
So identification is the key. If you can name how you're feeling, you can do something about it. If you can't put a name to that emotion, how can you deal with it? How does your body know that that's what you're choosing to deal with?
And if you can't put a name to it, that means you're not acknowledging that it's actually happening, and that you're actually,
because you haven't named it.
Because you haven't named it. No. So
It's
it's just lurking there, waiting to pounce.
There's the lurker again.
The thing to also remember is you are not defined by that name. You're living with it. You're not it. Right? It's very, very good for people that are living with an illness of any kind. You are not defined by that illness. You may be living with MS, but when you introduce yourself to people, you don't say, "Oh, my name's Marnie. I've got MS." You just say, "My name's Marnie. I happen to live with MS," and it's totally different to owning it as a title.
That's a good point. I like that one.
Me too. And it's like John Bradshaw said, for anyone who's familiar with John Bradshaw's work, what you can name, you can change.
Yes, because you've identified it.
That's right. And you know what you're working with.
You may need help working out why that showed up and when did it first appear. And that's where the kinesiology comes in brilliantly. We can say to the body, okay, well, you're holding it in this particular body system. This seems to appear to be the date it first showed up. What does that mean to you? And it might mean nothing. Like I've had clients that go, oh, no, that doesn't mean anything at all. And you, rather than self-doubt yourself as the practitioner, you go, oh, well, that's when it showed up in this session. And this is kind of what it's dealing with. Just sit with that. We'll still address it and give the body a solution or an action that it can take. And it's amazing how often later on someone will ring you and go, oh, my God, I know exactly what that's about. But at the time, they haven't a clue.
Yeah.
And when you're first doing your work, you think, oh, my God, I've got it wrong.
Yeah. And on top of that, for me, it's the over responsibility, that the lurker that comes up. I love that, the lurker. It describes it so well.
Yeah.
Why can't I get this? And so then you start to beat yourself. Well, I've certainly started to beat myself up zillions of times. And yet at the same time, there is an element of faith there for me as well. Working with the angels is also very important. And I know we all work with the angels. It's knowing that we have a universal team to support us as well. So having a little bit of faith can help us get through those moments of darkness when we're just not sure what in the Sam Hill we're supposed to be doing and what is the next step for us.
Something that I was really challenged with as a natural therapist, especially when I was training, because I came from quite a conventional box. I didn't come from a metaphysical mindset whatsoever. And so I got into kinesiology from the structural side of healing that I saw work. And I had to then embrace, so to speak, the spiritual side of things, which I must admit I was challenged by. But one of the other things that I used to get annoyed about was people that constantly said, you're only here to learn life lessons. And I think, well, it's a blame mentality. It's not a moving forward mentality. So rather than blaming, I didn't get it right for the first 23 reincarnations, what you say is, I may have brought through pearls of wisdom from those experiences that help me cope if it shows up again. So you're not discarding something. You don't have to hang on to the experience, but hang on to the pearls of wisdom. Create a necklace with pearls of wisdom from experiences, either learned or learned through knowledge or life, and they will be there to help you if it shows up again. You are not here to constantly learn lessons. You are here to have joy and happiness in your life for yourself first and for maybe one other person. Not about you didn't get it right.
Yeah.
You are exactly where you are designed to be.
Yeah, totally.
That's a personal experience, of course.
Yeah.
I agree.
You know, one of the things that I like to sort of think about is that beautiful saying is, I'm not what happened to me, I'm what I chose to become. And to me, that is one of my little things I go to sometimes when I'm having a bit of a difficult time, and it's, I'm choosing to become this person. It's not the past.
Yeah.
It's not all of those things coming up again, the lurker not coming up to attack me or anything like that. It's the choices that I'm making to move ahead in life.
And no one should be defined by their actions.
No.
They should be defined by who they are and what they're doing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And remember, with the lurker too, the lurker conjures up this image of a sinister, dark little person kind of thing. Remember, you can be mindful without being fearful. Right? If you're fearful, you go into adrenal response. If you're mindful, you're being cautious.
Yeah. That was another one of the pearls of wisdom that I learnt from you in my session, Marnie, and I love that, making a necklace out of them. And I've gone to that many times, because the thing with the unconscious fear, or the old wounds, the childhood traumas that aren't resolved or even recognized, is they're there all the time.
They are.
It's not like you, every now and again they come up. They're there all the time. Sometimes we're coping and sometimes we're not. And it's learning how to frame and reframe that event, because it's no good saying, oh, you just have to leave that in the past. The past is the past.
No,
that does not work.
It's not an action.
It's
it's almost like I'm discounting it.
Yeah,
so
it's
you
a
can't
judgment.
discount it. Your feelings, your body feels a feeling, and if you ignore that feeling, it'll just get stronger. It'll give you more and more hints. It'll keep knocking on your door like Sheldon out of Big Bang Theory until you answer it. You need to answer the door.
Money Perna.
I know.
True. But it's so true, because that's exactly what happens. It does keep knocking at the door, and eventually it's so loud you cannot ignore it.
Because you're not listening, you're not hearing it, you're not understanding that that's what the body's trying to tell you. And I'll say to clients, open the door, welcome, say, hello, Sheldon, what are you doing here? So if you
what are you doing out there?
Consistent little thing, call it a name, open the door, say hello, can I help you today? And you know, when you had kids and they wanted something and you do that whole, let me think about it. No. You know, that I pretend to think about it, but I'm not really going to. Do that with that emotion. Just say, no, not today. Thank you. I'm fine.
Yeah.
And close the door quietly. If you slam the door shut, it's kind of like you've lost control over that action.
Yeah.
If you close the door quietly, you've actually done that with volition. You've made the choice to close the door gently.
It's not a fear response, it becomes a choice. And that's such a good, I love that. I'm just getting all these moments of, kapow, kapow, kapow. It is opening the door, because one of the things I've learned and quickly forgotten, and then relearned, and then forgotten, then relearned.
Of course you do. Yeah, well, that's okay.
But that's a dance. It's a bit of a dance, right? It's okay, everyone.
You don't have to keep it all up here.
Yeah, if you're in the same kind of situation, it's okay. You're okay. We're here to help you. We've turned up today for a reason, and other people will turn up. Books will turn up. chaos, a calm amid chaos, for example. That's on Marnie's website, Kinique, KINIQUE.com. I'm going to put that in the comments. One of the things I learned over a major trauma that I experienced as a teenager was a group of traumas, was that I'd get close to that door, Marnie, and then I'd go to open it and the fear would be so intense and so raw and so visceral, I'd pull back. It was when I got the courage to go through the door that I realized I'd done the hard part. Getting there and stepping back was the hard part. Going through was so much easier than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah.
Remember pulling your teeth out as a child? Remember, you tie a piece of string to the tooth and you tie the other hand to the door and you go, I'm going to do this. And you go to slam the door. Before it's shut, you grab it.
Oh, what a dreadful thing.
I know, but how often? I mean, I kept trying to do it. And I don't think I ever succeeded in pulling a tooth out that way, ever.
My mother caught me. I'd wired up a few of my sister's teeth. And I had it, I was tying it on the door because I thought we could make some money that way. So if, kids, don't do it.
No, it's a different world. I don't think, I really don't.
It's an old remedy. I don't think they do it
And
nowadays.
kids are smarter now. Kids different. It's a different world now.
It's more of an example that you go to do something, but it's too hard, so you stop yourself.
Yes,
all right.
Exactly.
So during kinesiology and when I make my sprays and different remedies, I come up with the most amazing affirmations, which we get from our angels and guides, right? They're wonderful. But when someone's in that trauma response, can they remember them? No.
No.
It's too complicated. At that time, you are not thinking from this part of your head or your brain. This part of your brain is the frontal cortex, right? From that frontal cortex, you come up with creative solutions, you come up with actions, you come up with great ideas, right? When that's not working, there's no blood flow to the front of the brain. So what happens is you're coming from primitive reflex, you're coming from old responses. To get out of that immediate response of flight and fight, I've come up with a solution. If you say to your body, settle, petal, I am safe. The body goes, oh, thank you. Now I can think about what I need to do. So if you can come back to a feeling of safety that allows you to address something that's giving you a fear response, even if it's in like the people that freeze in actual danger and they just can't run, if they could suddenly say to their body, it's okay, I'm safe, get out of here, they would find they could move. But when they can't, they're stuck. They're stuck like the deer in the headlights. They just can't make it.
Because that's me. That's me. I'm not the runner. I'm the, oh my God, what do I do?
Yeah. So take yourself, say, like, I'll often use triggers in a session. So a trigger is just a movement that you make that is made with intention, but you add it as an anchor to a solution that you've had for something that's going on. So say the trauma is in your heart. Okay, so your heart is beating fast and you need it to calm down. If you can touch, even a heart meridian or just do that and say, this is to help my heart calm down again. And so you're actually saying to your body, when I do this, my heart will listen, my heart will settle down, it will start to regulate a little bit again and go, thank you, and then let it go. If you're in a danger where you find your heart racing again, do that. Your body goes, I know what that means. It'll take you back, and it gives you that capacity to pause and regroup.
That is perfect. And that
so it can be anything. A lot of people touch their nose, touch their ear. It doesn't matter what you do.
It doesn't matter what it is. Okay. You just
and it doesn't matter if it's something that you normally do. When you use it with intention, like I just said, it's a different instruction to the body.
That makes sense. That was one of the things that there were another two things I want to share with everyone, because we're talking about old childhood trauma, but this actually applies to absolutely everything, because a lot of what we're experiencing, in my opinion, even if we don't realize it, is connected to old childhood trauma. We are little sponges when we're little.
We are. We soak it up. We're little onions.
Yes, and then we can
and you just got to peel the layers.
Yep.
And between each layer, there's another little fine layer, remember?
And there's that lovely little skin that you get too. That's like, there's so many delicate parts to an onion if you actually stop and look at it. And if we see ourselves in that same way, we begin to understand there's a lot of delicate parts to us as well. A lot of
And
strength.
onions make you cry.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
say onions
needed.
make you cry as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is your release.
So there were two things. Okay, so one of the things I heard you speak about with Annette on one of her programs was when you are feeling upset about something, challenged by something, fearful about something, you can actually physically step back from it. And I've done this since our session. I've stepped back and the sense of relief was so strong. It's a little thing, but it was very, very powerful for me. And I can't remember what the other thing was now.
You're doing well.
It'll come back. It will come back. No, there was something else
come back.
in the session.
Yeah.
Oh, I am safe.
Yeah, I am
I
safe
have
is
felt
huge.
so unsafe. My inner child, my little self, has felt so unsafe since Mum and Dad made their crossing. And over the years, I've done so much work with my inner self, learning how to reparent my inner child, get in those moments where it's so raw that, as you say, the thinking part goes out of the brain. It's not about thinking because you can't.
No,
So
there's no
having
capacity.
having a few go-tos, even if you write them on a piece of paper and stick it somewhere, to walk to it and look at it, it'll remind you.
The thing is, it has to be simple or you can't remember it.
Yeah.
Simple. Yeah. Not a sentence. Could be one or two words. Step back.
And not
I am
like you
safe,
can't.
whatever.
They often say to go there and go through the 10 steps of how you feel, what you're doing, all those kind of things. In that moment, you can't do it.
No.
But what you can do is when you're not in that moment, and this is what I'll often. I'm going backwards in time. Like, do you remember the Shirley, the movie? It was an Australian movie about a shearer, and he had a little girl. She was called the Shirley. And remember, she used to walk around with a stick, and all her possessions were in the handkerchief at the back, which apparently is actually the Shirley. And I'll often say to people, create your own Shirley, right? And your Shirley is a visual, an imaginary visual or a vibrational visual package of your belongings that you need when you're in those moments of sheer terror or stress. So in that, put what is your safe place? So where do you feel the safest?
Yeah.
And imagine what it is. And when you come, and it doesn't matter where it is. It could be your bed, it could be the beach, it could be, I don't know, standing on your dad's lap. It doesn't matter where it is because it's unique for everybody. So where is your safe place? And get that image in your mind and place it into the middle of your Shirley, which is a lovely little handkerchief on the floor. Then smell. So what smell means safety to you? So come up with a smell that when you smell it, oh, it's so nice, well, that's your smell. All right. So what can you hear when you're feeling safe? Can you hear soft music? Can you hear the heart of your mum's heart beating? It doesn't matter what it is, but whatever you think, what comes to mind is generally the first thing. So put that in your Shirley. And then what can you taste? And whatever that is, put that into the Shirley. And that's hearing, sight, smell, taste, and feel. And how do you feel? And when you've gathered them all together, get your Shirley and take the corners to corners and tie them all in a knot and gather that in your hand. And then you gradually, because remember, this is vibrational, this is metaphysical, tuck it so that it's nice and tiny, but you've got it there, and place it in your heart. Then use your anchor. And your anchor could be, you just touch your heart region. So when you need that safety, when you need I am safe, touch your heart region or whatever anchor you've used, and that will take you back to that safety.
That's fantastic.
It sounds simple, but you can't do it when you're in the moment. You've got to do it when you're more relaxed.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, doesn't it, Caroline?
Oh, it does. Putting apart each of our 5 senses, if we can relate to each of those 5 senses and then placing them somewhere safe in your heart or wherever, and then
Yeah.
having that touch space, and that then just it's just magic almost, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Because it's
instant.
it's calming and instant and all of those things that help you come back to that safe place.
Yeah.
And it really is so simple, and sometimes we seem to want to try to make things really difficult because we think it'll work better if it's really hard and difficult, but it doesn't have to be. It goes back to that same thing with KISS. Keep it simple, Sunny.
Absolutely. And when I wrote my book because there was no simple explanation as to what stress was doing to me on a health and wellness level. And I came up with the 10, what I call my 10 simple tips for to de-stress. And the first example was smiling. If you can learn to smile again, the smiling releases happy hormones, which fills the stylizer, so it starts to lift your life energy, right? And I had a client, and she's in my book, and she was in a situation, they were in a nursing home. She had to put her husband in the next level. Her mantle of life was the wife and the carer, and she was having to let that go because she couldn't do it. And she was a slight woman and he was a big woman, and he had a stroke, and she just couldn't physically do it, let alone mentally do it. But she was copping a lot of flack from her family because she was supposed to be looking after him. He was doing the guilt thing that she should have been looking after him, and she had no reason to smile whatsoever. She was also that low in energy that people avoided her like the plague because she was just that person you just wanted to hide when you saw her coming. Right. So I had to teach her to smile, because that was one of the things I said, okay, let's raise your life energy. And I gave her homework, and I said she had to smile at 3 people a day. And I got back the following fortnight or something, and she said, oh, God, no, I couldn't do it. And I went, because I was fairly young in it then. And I said, oh, what do you mean? Of course you can smile. She said, oh, no. She said, I just couldn't smile at anyone. I'm going, oh, gee, this is going to be hard, because you're saying that in your head, not out loud. And I went, oh, I've got a great idea. And I took her into the bathroom and I said, there you go. Smile at yourself. Well, I could have picked her off the floor. She said, oh, I can't smile at myself. I don't like myself. I can't do what I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And there was no way she could have smiled at herself, let alone another person.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, my God. So I thought a bit more, and I said, I know. Your body knows what smiling means. And I got her to physically do that with her mouth, because the muscles of the mouth understand when you smile to release happy hormones.
Yeah.
Everything in your body is a memory response or a trigger to do something. And smiling releases happy hormones, even when she didn't want to.
I love that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I had to train her to do that, and that was her homework. And then I went out shopping, and I saw this really ugly looking piece of watermelon. And those dangly, they're dangly things, like you get pieces of fruit and stuff. This was a watermelon. It had the most inane smile on it. It was just ugly but cute. And I thought, oh, that's what I need for this lady. And I bought it, and I raced around to her house, because I'm a little bit of a unusual therapist. I don't always follow the correct rules all the time. And I knocked on her door and I said, Cheryl, look what I've got you. I've got you a present. And I went, ta-da! And she laughed at it.
Oh, look at that.
So if she could find nothing else to smile at, she smiled at that watermelon. And that's how we started to retrain her in gentle steps to start picking up her wellness again.
Because it is a retraining. We have learned for so long, a certain way of being and doing and acting and behaving, that sometimes it's...
But remember your life energy, your life blood, your enthusiasm, your capacity to cope, when that's being constantly eroded, it's not just learning to cope, it's the fact you just haven't got the energy to cope anymore.
Exactly.
Your life
And
energy is on you.
I can honestly, I feel quite confident saying every single one of us, you, me, Carol and Carol Ann, and probably a stack of you guys watching or listening on the podcast, have all been in exactly that situation, and we know just how that feels. And there's no amount of head talk or no amount of well-meaning advice from people that's ever going to change that.
No.
Yeah.
No. What you need to find the spark that allows you or gives yourself permission to start picking up again.
Yeah. And again, your book, Calm Amid Chaos. Now,
Marble?
I'm really, it's a very important. It's important that you guys understand that this book is really jam-packed with very simple tools for you that will actually give you the opportunity to start to make some shifts, to start to make some differences, and to have maybe a whole fresh perspective that you've never had before. And sometimes that's the beginning, right? It's that light bulb moment. Oh my God, that's me. So it's on your website. Is it on Amazon as well?
It is. I've got it in all fields as well. It's hardcover, ebook, and audio. I did the audio recording as well.
You
so
champion.
People can listen to
Perfect.
it.
That's fantastic. So, and lots of people like me love to listen to audio books when they drive. Maybe when you're peeling the veggies or something. So that might be a good option for you as well.
Now, talking about peeling the veggies, that's another instance where a lot of old trauma can come to visit.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Now, why that happens is when you're peeling the vegetables, you get comfortable, don't you? Think of yourself standing at the sink. You wait, you move around until you're in the spot. Okay? Then you start peeling the veggies and you don't have to think because you know how to peel the vegetables. So your mind will start to wander. Now, if there's some anxiety or challenges happening in your life, you'll tend to wander to that file in your filing cabinet. And you're also using water. Water is a conduit. So your emotions are being transferred energetically through the water. Okay?
Yeah.
How do you stop that? Get uncomfortable. Step sideways. Physically move out of that comfortable spot. All right. And I often say to clients, if that's something that they do quite often, put something on your window or in front of you that causes you to pause. Now, that something that's quite useful is a stop sign, just with the word stop on it. And you'll see it and you go, oh, that's right, I've got to stop. And your ability to say I've got to stop is your pause button. Or you could have the word pause. You know, you're stopping the program in the middle of it happening because I need to think better. So you've moved out of the way, you've pressed pause, you'll start to regroup. So what is a solution for what I'm working on or thinking about? Or what is a happier thought that I could start to focus on? What's a childhood memory? Or is there a nice event coming up that I'm looking forward to? So you've changed what you're thinking about while you're peeling the veggies.
That makes a lot of sense, actually, because as you're speaking, I'm thinking about when I'm peeling the veggies, and you're right. It is that moment in time when that's where my mind starts to tap into. Yeah, it does. Because as you say, I'm really comfortable with it. I know how to peel the veggies. I don't really have to think about peeling.
Except you've got little ones you're training. Then you've got to think. Worried about them cutting their hand open.
So I think that's really powerful. I think we're touching on some really positive, powerful, and very proactive points today that I hope will be of really great assistance to everyone who tunes into this program, whether it's now, later, 10 years later, it doesn't matter, whenever that is for you. Marnie, what else can you say to people who may be really finding that they are feeling their life is limited by old childhood trauma, but quite honestly, they've got no one to talk to, or maybe no one understands. Maybe they feel completely alone in that as well.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing you can say is, I hear you. Like if someone's trying, people will share how they're feeling with friends, family, and whatever, and they're not always looking for a solution. They're just wanting to let it out. So you don't always have to come up with the answers. In fact, most times you can't, because it's not up to you to tell people what to do. It's up to you to be a conduit of them being able to do something themselves. And, give someone a hug.
Yeah.
But, suggest if they're really in that low, put my tongue back in my mouth, if they are really that low on their energy scale and their emotional scale, they need to help. They need to seek professional help. So you might know the person, but you might say, well, go to your family doctor, talk to your I don't know, best friend. It's not always family. Family, sometimes they're too close sometimes to be of a, or it might be extended family. You know, if you're in tune with your angels and guides, you've usually got someone that's crossed over who's your guardian soul helper, right? And talk to them, or just say, you know, angels and guides, please give me a sign, give me some assistance that I can, because it has to be practical as well. There's no point discounting how you're feeling, because you could be really on that very low edge. So you need to seek help of some description. Now, angels and guides give us the most amazing signs and symbols that we're not always aware of, so we don't always see them. You know, feathers are the easiest one. You'll find a black feather in the middle of a shopping centre. Have you seen a black bird in there? Not really, but the feather's there. Or a white, it doesn't matter what colour it is. I'll often, if I'm really pondering on something, this grey feather will just turn up. Yeah. It's okay. Coins, 5-cent pieces on the ground. Most people walk over it and don't even see it. But it's a message from one of your guides or angels. And it's saying, hi there, how are you? I'm thinking of you today.
And sometimes it's just that instant, that little moment, that split second where you feel a connection to something. Yeah. And then it's so easy to think about it and discount it. That's the moment to step back, you know, physically.
Or you'll see something that reminds you of feeling safe as a child.
Yeah.
You know, pets are another really good guide for us. They become our guides from beyond as well, because they're here to protect us, and they'll come back, or they'll send another in their place. That's the other thing. You might declare you're never going to have another dog or a cat or whatever, and then eventually you do, and you go, oh my God, but you have to realise that it's been gifted to you through other channels.
Absolutely. And I think many of us have experienced that. I know with Sam, it's very much been that way, my Sam. And that level of love is very powerful. Many people do have an animal in their life, and it might not even be your own companion. No. It could be somebody else's. But they're, you know, animals have this incredible capacity to love. Their spirit is huge. It's not just about who they're living with, is it? It's about all the people that come into contact with them. Carol Ann has that very much. Carol Ann has that very much with the elementals.
Yes.
And the trees, right?
The trees are my big thing. But can I just step back a minute about the talking to someone? Because when I was at a very low place in my life many years ago, I needed to talk to someone. And in the end, I would say to people, I just want to talk to you. And they say, but we don't want to talk to you because we know if you start talking, you're going to get all upset. And I'd say, but I need to get this out, and I need to say it. So what I would like to say is that if you have someone in a situation like that and you're scared to talk to them because you don't want to upset them, think of it another way, is that they need to let it out. They need to get rid of it. And if they cry, they need to cry. And so to me, it's so important to talk to someone and just listen. Just let them talk. Let them say, you don't have to comment on it. Just let them talk. And that's so important to help the healing to happen, especially as it was in my case. So on a personal thing. But yes, I talk to the trees. I talk to anybody, and I just love the elementals and talking to them.
And see, they're another guidepost sometimes. So your favourite flower, or the colour of a particular flower that you suddenly see, or if you're a shell collector like me, you know, you'll find the shell just when you're pondering on something. There'll be nothing else around, and there's the shell. You go, oh, that's so good. And I know my work in clinic too, the shell essences come up a lot because I work with a lot of elementals. And for me, it's the shell essences and the message of that particular cell. I'm very keen and I use the story of whatever I use, and it's the story that makes that extra connection to the person, because it's not about what connects to me. It's got to make sense to the person, and they've got to feel as though it's sort of right for them. Otherwise, why do it?
That's right, because then that way you hone in on what it is specifically for that person, because we're all so unique and we're all so different. But having
and
that,
the same remedy can come up for this. The same remedy can come up with a multitude of different people, but for them, for each of them, there's a different word or there's a different aspect of that they're hearing or needing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that, because it's the onion again, isn't it? The different aspects. So what works for one person, it might be completely different for another person. So I think that's another good thing to mention, that sometimes when we see someone who's having success in dealing with their own personal stuff, we think that we have to do what they're doing. But that's just not the case. It's very personal to us. And I think now, I know this sounds like a shameless plug, and I guess it is in some ways, but in other ways it's not. In other ways it's not. You know, working with someone like you, Marnie, because you're connected, you know, apart from your intelligence and training, and you're very, very good at what you do, you have a connection, and you connect with the elementals, the angels, the person, spirit. And for me, that was so important, because this has been such a long journey for me, and a very frightening one at times. And it was just that one day I was on my iPad, and all of a sudden I just knew, oh my God, I'm going to go see Marnie. And I went straight on, booked the appointment. And Carol Ann knows, I've spoken about it so many times since. It has been the beginning of something really wonderful for me. So
maybe for you, it was just that completion circle. That, you know, you imagine health and healing can be a big circle, and you can have gaps in it all over the place. And sometimes you don't need to fill the gaps in, but other times you do. And it just sometimes is the catalyst. And it's not as if, like, the person on the table is the one that comes up with the solutions. Things that show up in kinesiology are not unknown things. People go, oh my God, that's so right, or that's exactly how I feel. So if they have none of those moments, you sit there and you go, oh my goodness, but they might have it later because they ponder on it. So healing sometimes metaphysically, the physical can heal slower than the metaphysical. So you have this little bit of a gap between the two. But I often find that it's the hours or couple of hours after a session, the gap closes.
Yeah.
Because they think a little bit more about it, and they go, oh my God, I fancy that coming up. How bizarre. You know, and so many bizarre things have happened. I mean, you can't explain some of the stuff that happens in there, because afterwards you go, where did that come from? You know, and a lot of it's trust.
Yeah, absolutely.
Trust what shows up, that it's appropriate for the person on the table.
And I think that's just a very important key element that you've just mentioned with the trust, because I mean, you're having that trust with what's coming up, but I'm also having the trust in you.
Oh, absolutely.
So this is what's made such a beautiful exchange of energy. When I left your clinic that day, the most extraordinary thing happened. I didn't tell you. The most extraordinary thing happened. I was absolutely famished. That wasn't extraordinary, but I was famished. And so I stopped to get something to eat. And I went to pick up something that I would normally have, like a salad sandwich or something. And then I realized, hang on a second. So I said, Body, what would you like? Blow me down. I could not believe it. I picked up a roast beef sandwich. So I've told my kids that, and they're going, I can't believe you ate that, because it's not something I would normally eat. Even as a kid, it's not something I would eat. So it's the trust in myself as well, to ask my body, what is it that you need, and trust what it tells me. Whereas normally I would think, no, I wouldn't eat that. I don't want that, because that was my first go-to. That's roast beef. I'm not going to eat that. And then I thought, I realized and I felt, hang on a second, you asked, you were told, so just trust it and go with it. And it's just
did you enjoy
it? So there you go. It just goes to show, doesn't it, that it comes up in very unusual ways.
Yeah. Know that when you're looking for someone to get help from, the right person will show up.
Yeah.
Now, that right person might be a conduit to the next person. You know, quite often you might see someone, but you know the person they need to go and see next. So it's that being able to, you know, get the ego out of it a little bit and go, you know, this person actually can address that issue a little bit better than what I can. But
Yeah.
people will say, I picked you because of your picture, or I liked the colour on your website, or, you know, it's not always a logical reason that people will book,
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
which, you know, and there can be one on every corner and there's not enough around. So
Mm.
there'll be someone for someone to talk to. And that's the thing to know, I
Absolutely.
think. Yeah.
I think it's important, Carol Ann. I'd like to hear you share on this as well. I think that's important to remember. Sometimes it's not the person that, and you know what, sometimes it's not even a person. Like you say, it might be
No.
your dog or somebody else's dog or cat or bird. It could be a tree, it could be a rock,
Mhm.
because we're talking about spirit here.
Mm.
Spirit exists in every single thing. And
it's that
having the-
intangible essence.
Yeah.
hey?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I have you, and it has been a tree for me at times. Just gone to a tree and I just feel this connection, give it a hug and just say, oh, thank you for being here for me. And
Mm.
just spill the beans, Carol Ann, but you've done something similar.
Yeah, I do it all the time. And you know, when I walk back through all the trees, I love to feel the energy coming out of each of them, because they each have their own individual energy, and it just is a really relaxing and soothing but healing energy.
Mm.
And I think
Yeah.
it's
Do you
really,
feel it, Caroline? Can you feel their energy physically?
physically, I would have to say yes, not a lot,
Mm.
but I can feel it. But
Mm.
I could also hear it. And I, when I was in hospital last, I had a tree outside my window, and that tree was my little saviour, because I was in
Yeah.
COVID times, so I had no human visitors. But this tree
Yeah.
was just the most amazing thing for me the whole time I was there. Mm. We
Mm.
struck up
I
a
know with
beautiful
feathers,
relationship. Mm.
when I pick up a feather, it pulsates.
Yeah.
I feel, and I thought everyone felt that, and someone said no. I went, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I had no idea that most people couldn't, but when I
Mm.
first picked the feather up, it pulsates in my hand.
Yeah.
I love
The
that.
candle
I
used to
recent-
create a picture for
Yeah.
me when I was meditating with a candle. I'd look at it and I'd see all these things in the candle. And yet I'm a very grounded, non-woo-woo-y kind of person
You
all the
are.
time.
Yes, you are. Now, I recently bought a plant. Actually, it's here. Say hello, everyone.
Oh, hello, plant. How are
Hello,
you?
plant.
So I recently bought this plant and realized I think it was far too expensive, and I was going to take it back once I realized how much it cost. And then every time I go to take it back, I forget it, you know. And then it was only the day before yesterday I realized, hang on a second, I've bonded with that plant. That plant is here for me.
Mm.
It's not
Yeah.
about how much it cost.
Mm.
It goes far beyond that. There is a connection, a relationship that we've formed together. And it's been a long time since I've actually felt that. I've started bringing plants back into my environment.
Mm.
And the difference I feel is really amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, not only do they provide, you know, beautiful, fresh oxygen, beautiful, clean oxygen for us, they also remove a lot of toxins from our environment. But even it's beyond that, I can feel the connection. And
Mm.
I'm noticing a lot more how it feels to have that connection with the plants in my environment, with nature, with all the beautiful fairies, the elementals, you know, the generous spirit of these plants, you know, bringing forward so much to support me. So it might even just be a plant for you.
Mm.
Don't discount it.
I'll often use flowers for clients that don't like using colour. So colour is another elemental that we use for healing. And if a certain colour makes you feel happy and you're feeling a bit low, treat yourself to a bunch of flowers. You go to Woolies or Aldi or something, and they're, you know, not very dear. Or go to a place where you can pick one or two. You know, you might be allowed to pick a great big bunch, but you may be allowed to pick one or two. And that for me comes back to one of my childhood memories. So when I was little, we lived in Bundaberg. So I was more than 4. So I was between 4 and 5. And we used to live in Bundaberg, and we used to walk past this lady's house to go to school. And this lady grew chrysanthemums, and they were everywhere. Now, I was, you know, the size of a flea. And in my mind, she had this massive garden. Now, it may not have been as massive as my mind remembers, but she used to create, like, get baskets of flowers or buckets of flowers, they were in those days. You'd get them in a 5-gallon bucket. And she would say to you, how much have you got today? And you say, oh, I've got a halfpenny. Oh, she said, that'll give you a lovely bunch. And for 5p, like sixpence, you got this massive bunch of chrysanthemums. And she would bring them around to your house so that you could surprise your mum on Mother's Day. And that's one of my really early connections to what makes you happy. And I love getting flowers. Flowers are lovely to receive and to have growing. I'm not a good gardener, but I love to see them growing.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Absolutely. I remember you've just given me a great connection to a memory when I was little, where we lived. There was like a bit of an open field and poppies used to grow there. And walking through the poppies, like you, I was little, so they felt enormous. And you know the fine little hairs that grow on the stem, and the way the light would come through them. And I could feel
that float, don't they?
Yes, they do. But I could feel a connection with them. So poppies have a beautiful support feeling for me, and a wonder feeling and a joy feeling. And that's brilliant.
How do you realise that? Had you realised that?
When I was little or now?
Now. Like you'd have now, just as instance. So that for you is another guidepost. So if you're feeling a bit low, look for poppies or get a picture of a poppy and have it on your wall.
That's a good idea. I'll do that.
Because that's
a very
that's a feeling of safety and wonderment.
It really is a feeling of safety. You're right. Being in that moment and it's just everything about it, the blue of the sky, the green of I can feel it so strongly. So, yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
So
Marnie.
you've encapsulated that into the poppy. So you get a picture of it, or when poppies are in bloom,
my Shirley.
one.
Absolutely. Wow,
I love that show.
You know, and I can remember.
I love that Shirley show.
Yes, me too. I've got it. Mum's DVD here of it, because the little girl in there. Oh my gosh, I'm so like one of my daughter, Erin. Oh
yes,
attitude.
I'm sick of this flaming job. She says
the way she stands her foot, so sure of herself.
I know.
And she even looked like her when she was little.
Wow. Yep.
I'll watch that. I think it's time to watch that and watch it with Mum.
Yes.
Invite Mum in from spirit. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's coming up to Mother's Day, so it's a good time.
Oh, you're right. It is too. Yes. No wonder she's
and so
here.
You can just let go your old the sad emotions that no longer suit your highest good while you're watching that movie. Let them go while Mum's sitting beside you.
Yeah. I am at that stage now, and it's such a relief where that dreadful grief is more harmonized. And there are moments where, I have a bit of a tear and I think, I wish I could pick up the phone and talk to Mum. But it's not heartbreaking anymore.
No.
And it's okay.
It's not as sharp, is it?
No, it's okay. And she'll pop in some way that will let me know that she's around. And
my mum turns up on Facebook all the time.
Yeah, she does. I see her there.
So many photos.
Marnie's mum.
It's looking for those signs and signals, isn't it? And since my youngest is expecting her baby, which is very exciting, and she's due right round my mum's birthday, which is very exciting.
There you go. Yeah.
So there you
what
go.
A gift.
You really do start to notice and appreciate and accept, all those beautiful signs and signals. So if you're on your healing journey and you're finding it really tough going at the moment, I hope this program has been, I trust actually that this program has had some useful information for you. Do visit Marnie on Facebook, Marnie Perna, Perna. Is that right?
Yep.
Spelling? Awesome.
Yep.
And also Connect. What's your Facebook page called again?
Connect Kinesiology.
It is Connect Kinesiology.
Yep.
Okay. KINIQUE and connect.com. KINIQUE. Go get Marnie's book, Calm Amidst Chaos, and let that be your guide as well. Thank you so much for today, Marnie. Hey, it's been so
Thanks,
fun.
ladies. It was fun, hey? I'm It reminded me of the old days when we used to do it by phone and we didn't see people's voices, and I was always over talking somebody.
Because we had the
Never
10
wait
second,
for that
we had the
space.
delay. Yeah, you had the delay. You used to have to speak and then count to 4 or something before you.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy. So Carol Ann, lovely to share with you. And Carol Ann and I both feel and agree that it's time for us to come back to Angel Heart Radio now. So you're going to see us a whole lot more often.
Yes,
About
definitely.
time. You are Angel Heart Radio. What are you talking about, Anaya?
She definitely is. She definitely is.
Yeah.
And it's been great talking to you today, Marnie. It's been lovely.
Thanks, Carol Ann.
Thanks, darlings. So lots of love, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us. And as you go about your day today, or maybe you're going into your evening, or maybe it's already nighttime for you, please try and remember that you're amazing just the way you are, that you matter in the world, and you're here with purpose and on purpose. And we are here to support you in every way that we possibly can. Really grasp onto that to help you remember your own magnificence. So thanks, everyone. And we look forward to catching up with you soon again. Thanks, Marnie.
See you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
There you go.
No,
Okay.
Before
so the
you
recording has
before you
It's
fully
still
go,
saying
Annette.
live custom stream.
Oh, we're still okay. We're still live, everyone. Sorry, hang on. Woohoo! We've loved having you with us. So goodbye. Okay. Yes. Now, oh no, we're still
Still saying it.
still
Still
streaming.
there.
Hang on, guys. It has been a while since